Hello, good evening and welcome to SwindonWeb Live. We're here at the count of the Borough Council elections in Swindon. This is the Oasis Centre. As you can see already, there's a hive of activity. And I'll go through exactly what's going to be happening over the evening very, very shortly. But basically just to let you know that of course the polls have now closed and the ballot boxes are starting to make their way here to the Oasis Centre. Now, of course, there have been two major elections today. There's the Borough Council elections, where a third of the council has been re-elected today, but also the European elections. Now, the European elections, of course, we're not going to be talking much about them this evening because they are not going to be counted until Sunday. And the reason for that is we have to wait for the rest of Europe to make their votes, and then we'll be able to count ours. So the results for that won't be until Monday, where, of course, Swindon is part of the whole southwest region. So looking very much at the Borough Council elections, we're here right beside the platform where the announcements will be made. The first boxes have come in, but there's a lot of activity behind me, and the reason is because, of course, that's where all the boxes are going to be counted. As they come in from the far corner, that's where the ballot boxes will actually arrive from the various polling stations. The first thing that will happen, as soon as the boxes arrive, they'll be opened and they'll do a tally with the amount of votes cast and the amount of votes in the ballot box. That's the first job that has to be done. Once that's been completed, then they will actually start counting the votes themselves. Now, a few boxes have already arrived, and we're only, about 20 past 10. And, of course, as the evening progresses, we'll get a feel of what's happening. Now, we're expecting the first result round about, hopefully, 12:30. Nobody's committing themselves on that for obvious reasons. Around about 12:30. It should be fairly quick. 19 ward seats are up for grabs this evening. So, hello, welcome back to the Oasis Centre here for SwindonWeb's live coverage of the Swindon Borough elections. Welcome if you've just joined us as well. The time now is approximately 20 to 11. Now, what's actually happened so far this evening, the polls, of course, closed at 10 o'clock. The ballot boxes have already started coming in the far corner over there. In fact, the first ballot box arrived at 10:15. The counting has actually begun. It actually began at 10 o'clock when they opened up some of the postal ballots. Now, the first job they have to do is to compare the amount of votes cast with the amount of votes in the actual ballot boxes themselves. Once that's been done, then the actual counting can then begin, and we're hoping for the first results to come out round about 10:30 this evening. Now, we're going to be talking to lots of different people throughout the evening, including candidates, including various party leaders, and of course other people who are going to give us some feedback of how things are going. Now, a few things to look out for this evening. The main thing to bear in mind is that, as you will be well aware, I'm sure, the Tories hold the balance of power on the council by just one seat. So if they lose just one of their sitting candidates this evening, they will lose overall control, and then the council will become a no overall control council. Now, the Labour Party, of course, have a shout at being able to get overall control, but they need to gain 5 more seats and hold on to the ones they've got already in order to do that. Now, there's a few other curveballs that have been thrown in. First of all, UKIP, of course, are now a major force to be dealt with. They only actually fielded candidates for half the wards last time, and this time they have fielded candidates for every single ward. Now, that's particularly important, especially with the rise of UKIP nationally. Certainly looking around the hall, there's a lot of purple around from them, and in fact, there's already a couple of rumours from exit polls that the UKIP may have actually taken 2 of those seats away from the Tories. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that Labour can get in, but what it does mean is that, again, there's no overall control in the council. Now, for the Lib Dems, of course, nationally, they've been struggling tremendously, very low in the polls. In fact, an exit poll for the European elections is suggesting that they might even lose a tremendous amount of their MEPs. Now, we're going to be looking over the table over there at Escott, because that's the one seat that the Lib Dems are going to be looking to hold. Now, they should hold it. It would take quite a swing towards Labour for them to actually lose that seat, but you can see quite a hubbub of the Liberal Democrats actually over there watching the votes and watching how that's going. Now, it would need a swing of about 21% to Labour for that to happen. But you know what? You just never know in these circumstances. But it's basically that Escott is a bit of a 2-horse race between Labour and the Liberal Democrats. Now, of course, it's not just the Labour Party looking to take away seats. In fact, some of the most marginal seats are those seats actually held by Labour at the moment that in theory the Tories could grab back. Looking particularly at Old Town, they need a 1% swing to be able to get that seat back, and also Cobingham and Dorking, they only need a 2% swing for that. But certainly all the polls and the general feeling is that the swing is going to be to Labour, but is it going to be strong enough to get Labour into full power? There's a few seats we're going to be looking at, particularly to see if they make it. Lydiard and Freshbrook looks to be the most vulnerable for the Tories in terms of them losing. They only need a 3% swing to Labour for them to actually get that seat. Also, they'll be looking at St Margaret and South Marston. That's another seat that they only need a 9% swing for Labour to get that one as well. So it's really very touch and go in terms of what's going to be happening. So it's a very exciting evening. We will be back throughout the evening to let you know what's going on. Of course, no news about the European elections tonight because we will not start counting until Sunday. Now, if you'd like to keep in touch with what's happening, please do go on to our website, SwindonWeb.com, click on the feature story, and that's where you'll get the very latest of the live coverage. Now, we'd love to hear from you on Twitter, and we're at SwindonWeb TV, or you can email us, video@SwindonWeb.tv as well. But get in contact with us if you've got any questions. Would you like me to ask some of those party leaders or candidates or the people doing the analysis any particular questions? One of the things I'd like to know is how much has it been a local battle, how much has it been about national politics? And we will be back again very soon, so stay with us and get more local coverage here at the Oasis Centre from Swindon Web. Welcome back to the Oasis for Swindon Web's live coverage of the Swindon Borough elections. I'm standing in front of the podium at the moment. Now, this is the podium where all the announcements are going to be made about the winners and the losers of this evening's election. Now, of course, we aren't really expecting any of those results to come in until approximately midnight, maybe a little bit later. We'll have to wait and see. But that's basically where it's all going to be made. Now, earlier on, the official returning officer who basically oversees the entire count process made announcements to let us know how the evening was going to proceed. Now, right behind me over here, you can see the actual count begin, but in fact it's not the actual count, because what they're doing at the moment is what they call the verification process. Now, that means that all the ballot boxes will be coming in one by one from the far corner, and then we'll be heading over to these tables. Now, you can see above each table you've got the various wards listed there. Now, what will happen is the boxes will come into those tables, and the first thing they have to do is to verify. Now, what that means is that the polling officers will have taken a list of all of the various people who've actually voted, so they need to check the amount of votes cast equals the amount of votes in the ballot boxes. So that's the verification process, and that's what's taking place right now behind me. Now, then the returning officer will normally make an announcement to actually say when the count is actually going to begin, so when the actual votes will be counted and watched. So at the moment you can see the main tables where all of the various council officers are working, and they're trying to make sure that everything's correct and in order, and all of the ballot papers do actually match the numbers that were on the boxes. Now, you can also see on the other side, where we're not allowed to go as the press, you'll see the various representatives from the parties, and what they're doing is verifying everything themselves. They're allowed as independent individuals to watch and make sure that everything's above board and that nothing goes wrong. You can see the gentleman there with table leader. He's just watching all of the various voting taking place by the council officers, watching them do all of their counts up and down. And again, you can see the various individuals from the parties. They're having a look to see how well they're doing. Of course, at the moment it's very early days. They're just doing their verification. There's nothing really to be gained at this moment. That'll come a little bit later on. But the purpose of them being there is just to make sure effectively fair play. And of course, all of that comes down to the responsibility of the returning officer. We'll hear a little bit more about him later on. Now, one of the things that's really interesting is the amount of purple that you see. And I'm actually coming over to the UKIP team. Would anybody like to come and speak to us? We're from Swindon Web. We're actually live at the moment.
Oh, I see.
And we've noticed there's a lot of purple in the room tonight.
Yes.
And of course, you've fielded candidates for every single ward this time,
I must excuse you a minute. I'm not a Swindon person.
You're not a Swindon person? Excellent.
I'm the chairman of Bath branch, actually.
Okay.
And I've come along to, because you've got 19 candidates.
That's right.
They've all worked their hearts out campaigning, and I think this could be a reflection of things to come. And the way I look at it, with what could happen, is a reflection how a lot of people feel about how the other parties have failed over certain things. And also, if we could get a few councillors on, one or two, with Swindon. I think that could be the balance of power.
Well, certainly the exit polls are looking quite positive for you, aren't they?
Yes, they really are. The trouble with polls, see, what's the poll today? Can you tell me the latest?
I can't tell you that. I don't know the latest. All I've heard, I've just heard the rumour around the hall that you've done quite well in Swindon and possibly 2 seats. Two seats.
We're looking around at the tables. I'm feeling pretty positive. So I'm rooting for them. It's going to be good. Going to be a good result for us.
Okay.
We've got everything to work for.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So we've got a few other people. We've actually just spotted Justin Tomlinson over here, the MP for North Swindon, and going to have a quick chat. You're actually live, Justin.
Hi, are you alright?
We are. How are you?
I'm such a geek. I'm always here right at the beginning of the campaign. I think it's the years of campaigning. I like to look every last little bit of trend and see what's happening.
So how's it feel? You've been out there at the various polling stations, I presume, today, having a little bit of just a gauge.
5 o'clock this morning we started.
Right.
I've got a brilliant campaign team. Look, we've had a really good campaign. Lots of positive messages. Lots of it's just gone out. Fresh and flesh, spoken to lots and lots of people. Clearly tonight UKIP are going to pick up a huge amount of votes. I suspect they're not going to win a seat. They'll be very, very disappointed at that. I know John Short was very excited, but you know they'll have got a reasonable thing. What also seems to happen is it's actually taken from all of the parties, and it's going to ultimately come down tonight to Old Town, to Covingham and Dorking ward and the Stratton ward. Those are the 3 wards where we're 20 behind in Covingham, 92 ahead in Stratton. I'm not sure what it is in Old Town.
So do you think you could actually get Old Town back?
Well, I don't know that South Swindon, I'm North Swindon, so I'm looking at the Covingham and Stratton ones at the moment. And Labour feel that Covingham's going our way and Stratton's going to be, you know, quite a nail biter. But you know,
it's only a very tense evening for David Reynard and the whole team, because obviously just 1 seat.
Yeah,
that's all it takes.
But also, you know, I was a councillor for 10 years, 10 very happy years, that you could have done a huge amount of work, and in the bigger picture, suddenly this sort of different thing comes in and changes the complexion round. But look, I think the good councillors will be fine tonight, and in those marginal wards, it was who was able to convince people to stick with the respective parties. Look, people wanted to register a protest. It's a friendly protest. People weren't slamming doors in our faces. They were saying it's important that all 3 leaders, we've got a 12-month countdown to the next general election, they take on board that, you know, there's no deal being sealed. In our case, the economy is growing, but we need to go a bit further. If I was the Labour Party, I'd be very, very worried at the moment, because 1 year away from an election, the public are not choosing to protest with them the main opposition. I remember 2004, we had spectacular gains in the council elections here, and then probably lost the 2005 general election. It is history tells you opposition parties always win the council elections. It isn't looking good for Labour
the question is how much and whether they can, because of course they only need 5 seats to be able to get overall control of the council.
Well, it's not looking that way at the moment. I mean, it's still very, very early days, and we've
I love the way you're putting your neck on the line, making that prediction.
We will not have Jim Grant as the council leader tonight. Look, I know his name. I feel very, very honoured to do that. But look, I don't know what to say. You know, I was sticking up for him on the radio earlier because, you know, I don't agree with any of his politics, but boy, does he busted up for the Labour Party cause. And if there was one person in Swindon that the leader should have known, it is Jim Grant. But I have encouraged him to come and join us with punishment.
But it was a shame that Grant Chaps didn't know David Reynard.
But he was in London. That's different. If he was coming to visit Swindon and he'd actually met him, then you'd think he'd actually remember his name. And I have confidence that Grant would. So look, it's going to be an interesting night tonight.
Well, we'll talk to you a little bit later on, and we'll see if your predictions come true.
Okay,
Justin, thanks very much indeed. And we've got David Reynard here. David, how are you feeling about everything? We've got a bit of a prediction there from Justin, saying that you're going to hold on and you've got a good chance of maintaining this council.
I think we have. It is tight. Obviously, majority of one is the smallest majority you can have, and it could go either way. But I think we're reasonably confident in one ward, not so confident in another, and the other one is probably about a 3-way split. But there's no doubt that there are 3 wards that are the main battleground.
Now, what about the UKIP effect? I mean, they're sounding quite buoyant over there. There's rumours in the exit poll that they might have taken 2 seats away from you.
I think they will certainly increase their votes, probably in all wards. I don't think there's much doubt about that. I'm doubtful they'll get enough to take a seat, but we'll have to wait and see. I could be wrong.
Well, I know it's going to be quite a nail-biting evening for you. How much have you felt that it's been about local politics this election versus the national picture?
I think each ward has had its own particular issues. I wouldn't say there is one issue that has dominated the whole election across the whole borough. And I think you'll see that reflected in the vote. Different candidates have campaigned on different things, and it's had a different outcome in each case.
If you do manage to retain power, what's some of the lessons you're learning? I mean, for example, there's been quite a backlash about the green bin, about the amount of consultants and things like that. Are you taking that stuff on the chin and sort of thinking, hang on a second, maybe we do need to review what we're thinking about here?
Well, everybody's got to realise that councils have got less money, and we can't keep doing things the way we've done them before, and that doesn't only apply to Swindon, that's all councils across the country. We didn't want to introduce the new green bin service as it is, but given the financial situation, we didn't feel we had much choice. Obviously very keen to listen to the feedback and do what we can. The issue of consultants, I think, is a little bit of a red herring, because most of the money we spend on consultants goes on highways. They do a lot of the road design and implement the schemes for us in terms of roads. And the Labour Party have said they want to spend more money on roads. Well, if you want to spend more money on roads, you have to spend more money on the consultants that do all the design work for us. So, you can't have it both ways.
Now, if you don't make it this evening, what about alliances with the other parties?
Well, we've had a good relationship with the Liberal Democrats for the last few years. I doubt if we could do a coalition agreement with the Labour Party, because clearly their ambition is to take control of the council in their own right. But we've talked to everybody. We have done a lot of cross-party work already this year on a number of issues. And the town centre, for example, Wychell Stowe, we've got full cross-party consensus on those issues, and we'll continue to try and do that anyway, whatever the outcome.
So the relationship between the Tories and the Lib Dems is a little healthier in Swindon than it is in Westminster?
Well, I think it is. I have to say the Liberal Democrat group is made up of some very nice, personable individuals that it's quite easy to have a conversation and get on with, so that helps.
Now, what about the conversation with UKIP come the time if they do gain a seat?
Well, I mean, if we don't have a majority, we'll be keen to talk to everybody, whether we can come to an agreement or not. It's difficult with UKIP because they don't have a whipping system. So we might come to an agreement, and then if on a particular issue, they might feel unable to support it, or some of their members may feel unable to support it. So I'm not entirely sure how that would work, but we'll have the conversation.
Well, thanks very much. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on in the evening, certainly when the results start coming through, and get some feedback.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we've managed to talk to two parties already, and in fact we've got the Liberal Democrats here, and I've noticed you spent a bit of time over at the Escort table.
Oh yeah, well, it's always crucial for us to have our big base in Swindon. Well, I was first elected there 29 years ago, so obviously it is our outstanding seat.
So what's been your feeling about, obviously you've been watching Escort, that's the main seat that you're defending, but obviously you'd hope to make gains. How much do you feel you've been affected by the national picture?
It's been made very difficult, because normally the Liberal Democrats are always the campaigners against government policies, and now we are part of the government, so it does make it very different. And therefore what we have done is concentrate on local issues and getting local things done, and actually put forward very good candidates in our target ward, which is it's a different stance, because we for the first time we can be damaged by the government as opposed to actually doing damage to the government by being the opposition. So it's a different phase. So it's interesting times for us.
Has it felt like an uphill battle on the doorstep?
Well, it has, and that's been partial because of the UKIP rise, which is, the UKIP has become the voice of opposition, and people don't know any of their local policies. Let's face it, do you know any of their local government policies? No, you don't. It doesn't matter. They've become the party of opposition. So the effect they will have is going to be very interesting. People often think it will take away the Tory vote, but I'm not so sure. I think it will affect, obviously, the hard, what term used to be called working class vote. So I think it will have effect on all the parties. So therefore tonight's result will be very interesting, and I think to some extent unpredictable. So it's going to be a very interesting election in Swindon.
Well, talking of predictions, putting your neck on the line there, you've been out and about today, you've been talking to people. What's your kind of feel of how things are going to go and how the council will look tomorrow morning?
Well, I think the council are going to know overall control, which will benefit us. Obviously that would give us a big say in obviously putting our policies forward, and either being a kingmaker or working with whichever party has the most seats. So a very interesting time. But that would be my prediction. No overall control from council, will fall out of Conservative control.
Okay, well thank you very much indeed for your time, and we'll talk to you later on and get more analysis as time goes on.
Great,
thank you very much indeed. So you've got a bit of an idea there, obviously mixed views as always, as you would expect at these kind of things. Now we're looking to see if we can get someone from Labour to maybe have a chat with us. We've had the other main parties, maybe someone from the Greens as well. As you can see, all the various media are around trying to grab as many people as they can. But let's take a little walk over here. We've got the Labour group, one or two over here, who might wish to speak to us. and see what their view is. Have they picked up enough votes to actually take over control of the council? Now, of course, at the moment, all we're doing, as I mentioned earlier on, is a verifying process. That's all that's taking place at the moment. We'll get an idea a little bit later on when we find out when the actual count begins, and that's when you'll see a bit of a flurry of activity this side heading towards the tables as the various parties want to verify all the various results coming through. Now, we're still looking around, seeing if there's anybody from the different Labour Party who would like to actually speak to us. We'll just have a quick chat with you. We're Al Screener from SwindonWeb TV, and we're broadcasting live at the moment. And we're just trying to get a bit of feedback of what your experience has been on the doorstep. You've been out there today at the polling stations. What's your feeling?
Very difficult to call. Very difficult. People are clearly buying into the mass hysteria over UKIP, and you know, it appears to have been taking votes off of both the Labour and the Conservatives.
But you should be sweeping the floor. You know, you're in opposition in Westminster. You get that. You've been in opposition here in Swindon for a while. You know, why aren't you gaining more momentum?
Media coverage.
What do you mean by that?
Well, every time a shadow minister comes out and makes an announcement, the press rip it apart and say, oh, they would say that and this, that, and the other. When UKIP come out and say, oh, you know, we've been governed in a bad way, nobody takes any notice. The press give it massive publicity. And people are obviously buying into it.
Now, some people might say that's sour grapes and you haven't been able to engage with the public and the media.
Well, I'm not quite sure how we're supposed to engage with the public. We've been out on the doorstep since last November. In fact, we've been out for the last 2 years, knocking on doors, talking to people, finding out the issues that are affecting them in Swindon, what they're upset about, what they're happy with, and we've based a campaign around what they've told us. But ultimately, I can say as a councillor on the doorstep, this is what we want to do, for the Labour wants to do. But if the mass media come along and say, you know, vote a different way, that's how people, unfortunately, that's how people buy into it.
So something's gone wrong, though, hasn't it? If you haven't been able to get that message out there, if you haven't been able to convince them that you will do what they're looking to do.
Yeah, but the thing is that, you know, somebody turns up on your doorstep and says, oh, I'm from a political party, I'm trying to do this, this is what I want to do for our community, and the person says, oh, that's a good idea, and then the following day they read a story that says bananas are too bent and the European Union are going to stop you eating bananas, and they're all up in arms, and that, you know, how am I supposed to counter that on the doorstep? I can't keep walking around with a rule book of what is and what isn't actually fact.
So has that become the major issue for you on the doorstep, the whole European argument?
It hasn't been an argument at all, because I've been talking about local Swindon politics. I've been talking about issues and that, and
but people obviously for some reason haven't bought into what you're saying.
Because unfortunately in this country people appear to vote at local elections on national issues, and they vote at national.
Well, on that you should be doing well, because you know, Labour have been in opposition. They've, you know, Ed Miliband's been talking about you know, people not feeling the benefits. So why is that not permeating through to the general public?
I don't know. And maybe in the post-mortem of how these elections have gone, we will sit down, the Labour Party will sit down and work out. But tonight I'm not going to turn round and say something anti-Labour at national level or something like that makes me, because I don't know what all the factors are.
So you're not feeling particularly positive about the Labour count this evening? You're not predicting, for example, that Labour will get those 5 seats and get overall control?
It doesn't appear that way at the moment.
Right, okay. Well, thanks very much, and I appreciate being so frank with us. Thank you. Well, we're now looking for a member of the Green Party to have a chat with us, and have we got someone? No, we haven't managed to find them. We have been looking, we promised, but haven't managed to find them. I have seen them over that way a little bit, so I'm guessing that there's probably a table over there. They're actually going for 12 different seats on this particular occasion, so we'll see how well they do. Will they be able to dent into it? Anyway, we'll be back a little bit later on with some more feedback. We'll let you know when the counting actually starts, and that way we'll get a little bit of a feedback, but certainly some very mixed messages coming here out of Swindon, and certainly the balance of power looks to be literally teetering on the edge. This is Al Screener for SwindonWeb. We'll be back soon. Hello, welcome back to SwindonWeb Live. We're here at the Oasis Centre in the middle of Swindon. We're here at the count, Although the actual count has officially started, they're still verifying all the votes to make sure that the numbers of votes balance what they have in the ballot boxes. As soon as the count starts, we will let you know. Now, if you'd like to see what all the various party leaders said in their manifestos, then of course have a look on our website. You'll find all the details there. And of course that is at SwindonWeb.com. And of course, we'd love to hear your feedback throughout the evening's broadcast as well, and you can let us know on SwindonWeb TV, and that's at SwindonWeb TV. Now, I'm joined by John Short. We've actually been talking to most of the parties this evening, still trying to get hold of the Greens, but talking to John Short from UKIP, looking to be hopefully a good night for you.
Yeah, it looks as though we're going to achieve a fair amount tonight. We've set out to achieve 20 candidates for a third of the council. We've achieved that. Everything else is going to be a plus tonight. Because bear in mind, for the last 18 months, we started from a base of nothing to get where we are now.
So you fielded last election, you fielded half the wards with candidates. This time, every single one.
Absolutely.
Obviously, there's a significant amount of momentum now. So people are actually looking. This is going to be a major gauge for UKIP, isn't it, to see how well they perform?
It certainly is, and I think we can only go from strength to strength now.
So what's the bare minimum that you would like to achieve this evening?
This evening, 3 to 6 wards. Excuse me. Whether that's achievable or not, we'll see. Excuse me. The other thing is, I think we need to analyse where we are, and if we come a close second, we know what to do in the future. And I think on a certain amount of the wards, we will come a close second. It does look very positive for UKIP.
Now, talking on the doorstep, have you found that you've been resonating with predominantly Tory voters, or have they been Labour voters, or mixture? What sort of mix have you had?
I think what will prove tonight is that it's a combination of both. In fact, it's probably a combination of three. A lot of people are turning towards UKIP from both the three main parties of Swindon.
And how much of that has been local versus national level? Because these are often seen, aren't they, as the protest votes, and UKIP certainly are the new protest votes, if you like, for all the incumbents.
Well, I would say to you that it's gone beyond the protest vote now. It's gone into a realistic situation that now accounts for Swindon, in Swindon, for UKIP being at least the third biggest party now. Because we had no doubt about it, we are bigger than the Lib Dem party now. Well, although we don't have any candidates on the council.
Well, certainly listening to some of the exit polls, it put the suggestions that you might certainly have got 2 seats. What would be a bare minimum for you, do you think, to say, yes, we've made inroads here?
I think any seat that we win will be a positive. Now, don't forget, if it's going to be a hung council, then we will determine the power and where it stands. Because we won't be going in allegiance with any party, subject to whatever that party make sure that we do right for Swindon. For example, we would take the refuse service back to a weekly refuse service. We would do away with the tax on the green waste. We would certainly not sell off or lease off the leisure centres or all the playing fields and that go with them and everything. So there are basic issues that we've got to get sorted out, such as recycling. When I was Deputy Chief Executive retired in 2005, we actually had a programme to build 2 recycling centres. One at Dorking and the other one where it is now in Waterside Park. That's never happened. Now, before we go into the rounds of solar panels and wind farms and things like that, we need to get back to the basics and make sure it's what the people want. Else we'll end up having fly tipping all over the place, which we had before, which in past experience dictates that we need to make sure that these services run correctly.
Now, one of the interesting things is, of course, you don't have a whip system, so therefore any party who might want to form allegiances with you, if it is a hung council, that could prove quite interesting.
It will prove interesting because we are still in a situation where we let our councillors decide what's best for the local community, what's best for their area. Having said that, we will need to take stock and look at where we want to be as a party.
So we're looking at the other parties. You say you've taken fairly broadly from all of the other parties,
yes.
Or you certainly feel that.
Yeah.
Do you feel that, is that what you were expecting, or has that been a bit of a surprise?
Partly I was expecting. A lot of it, I've got to say, is a surprise. But as the weeks have gone by, and you get a feeling on the doorstep, there has been a lot of interest. And once you explain what the party stands for, and we get away from all this gutter policies regarding racist and homophobic and that sort of thing that's been levelled at the party, which it isn't, I've got to tell everybody, Because I wouldn't be a member if it was.
But that's a very I mean, you have had, and you know, as Nigel Farage has said, you know, every party has their, I think they use the word nutcase or whatever.
Yeah,
but obviously you have to deal with that on the doorstep, because that's going to be a perception from people as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it is a perception of people. We've got over that now, locally. Although I can't legislate for anybody going berserk tonight. But at the end of the day, I and our committee have instilled into people that we want to stay professional and make sure that we don't, for want of a better expression, slag the other parties off, that we fight it on the policies and we don't get into gutter politics. And that's where we stand, and that's where we're coming from.
Well, we'll talk to you a little bit later on in the evening and see how you do and see whether things actually rise as you hope they do. Thanks very much for
Well, things are all looking positive anyway.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. I'll just take your microphone off you. We're going to stay live because we're going to talk to Des Morgan. Thanks very much indeed, John. Talking to Des Morgan here, who is political commentator, I suppose, really for Swindon 105.5. You've been in the area, you're very well versed with politics. How's this evening shaping up to what you thought it was going to be? You know, talking, say, maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Already this evening, I'm getting a feeling of something a bit different to what the pundits were suggesting.
You know, I think we're going to see something quite exciting in Swindon tonight, because 2 weeks ago we were talking about the UKIP effect, and we were talking about the UKIP effect as it was going to affect the European vote, the national vote. We were talking about obliterating the Liberal Democrats from the southwest, even indeed possibly from the whole of the country. But people were saying, whilst they thought that UKIP might have a small influence on what's happening in Swindon, there was no way it was going to affect the wider view, and it wasn't going to really upset the major parties. Remember that every major party has described UKIP as a bunch of loonies and fruitcakes. Tonight,
a phrase that's coming back to haunt them all.
That phrase is coming back to haunt them, because this is having your cake and eating it. And there's some anxious faces, Alistair, in the hall tonight, on Conservatives and Labour. I've just come from the central ward count, and that looks, to all intents and purposes, it's stacking up in favour of the Lib Dems.
Which is an extraordinary thing, because looking at how it voted last time, it was a massive Labour majority for that particular seat in terms of the incumbent there. You know, they had, it would take an 80% swing for the Tories to have got that. So for Lib Dems to have come in, I mean, that's a tremendous result.
Well, what they've done, of course, is they've traded upon a single vote, by the looks of it. They chose a candidate who would appeal to the Goan community within the area. And it does look as if that's been a successful strategy.
Wow, that is quite an extraordinary story, isn't
it? Yes, if it's true, if we end up with the Labour candidate who gets elected, the Liberal Democrat candidate gets elected, that could be quite an interesting story, rumbling on for a long time, how demography affects the voting patterns in a town like Swindon. We've often seen it in social demography. We look at the parks, we look at the lawns, and we say to ourselves, the parks traditionally should be and always have been Labour. The lawns have traditionally and should be Conservative. But Central has always been an amalgam of a number of different groups, and it's generally come out as a Labour ward. So we may be in for a shock tonight.
Well, talking of shocks, of course, looking at some of the other ones, Old Town, of course, is one where the Tories are hoping to get that back. They only lost it by a very slim margin last time.
Seven votes.
So, you know, what's the word there? Is there any chance they could get that back? I mean, everything should be against the Tories. You know, they're incumbents in Westminster. They've been here, you know, since 2003 in power. You know, everything on the wall says they shouldn't get it back, but could they?
Yeah. Old Town's very interesting as well, because of course you've got Claire Ellis has moved from Havenwick into Old Town, so she's a new face on the block. People aren't recognising a name here, so if it's going to be a vote, it's going to be a vote for the party. Again, I think we may see that UKIP may just have caused enough collateral damage to make that seat much more marginal than even 7 votes.
Wow.
So I'm not convinced that the Tories will take Old Town, but it will be very interesting to see how that UKIP vote has pulled the voting patterns apart, and it certainly has.
You know what's very interesting, you were talking there about the difference between personalities and parties, and one of the frustrations obviously for local councillors is so much is determined by the broader national picture. Traditionally, whoever's incumbent in Westminster, they will lose in the local elections. That's traditionally the pattern. Yet you're talking here as if actually people are voting for individual personalities, and that will actually maybe carry through beyond the bigger picture.
Someone once told me that the individual personality vote is worth 10% of the total vote. Now, in a general election with members of parliament, that's not a big deal. 10% of a lot of votes is a lot of votes.
Yeah.
But here, 10% of the voting is critical stuff. You know, as we say, 7 votes, my goodness. These people would love to win by 10%.
Yes.
So if 10% of the vote is personal, a greater proportion of it is party political. And then, of course, the part which nobody wants to talk about, and you're quite right to raise, Alistair, is that national events do impact on local voting. There's no doubt about that at all. Somebody suggested that the UKIP vote would be enhanced dependent on which paper you filled in first in your ballot. So if you had a European paper and you ticked or put your cross by UKIP, the chances are that you would probably put your cross by UKIP on the borough council vote. Now that's an interesting thought, because most people thought that there would be 2 patterns of voting, a European pattern and a local council. But tonight we could be in for a shock.
Now, we've talked about the Tories, we've talked about the Lib Dems, we've talked about UKIP a lot. What about Labour? I mean, at the end of the day, they should be, you know, they're in opposition in Westminster. It's nearly election time, 1 year to go before the national elections. They've been in opposition here in Swindon. Well, certainly they haven't had control of the council for many, many years. They should be cleaning up, shouldn't they?
Well, I think that nationally, Labour are affected by their leadership. I don't think there's any doubt about that, that Ed Miliband is not regarded by the public as being prime ministerial material. And behind him he's got a cabinet which is not full of Gordon Brown's allies or Tony Blair's allies, but they haven't got anybody who in any way you could call distinguished or outstanding. So that is a problem for them. Locally, of course, the Labour Party should have been able to make huge inroads into the Conservatives. There's been enough issues, let's not call them scandals, let's just call them issues around the Conservative administration over the past 2 years for a politically savvy group to take them apart. And they don't seem to have had the will, or they don't seem to have had the construct to actually take the fight and take the feet from underneath the Conservatives.
Now, joking apart, do you think the gaffe, Ed Miliband's gaffe on the BBC Wiltshire earlier on in the week, did that have any effect, or did we just all have a bit of a laugh about
I think we had a bit of a laugh about that, because, you know,
of course we should mention the Grant Shapps straight afterwards.
Exactly the same thing. And his was even worse, in my opinion, because he had the temerity to say, I knew you were going to ask that question, and I still didn't research it. Now, how silly is that? Because I must confess, if it had been me, the first thing I would have done before I was interviewed was made sure I knew the names of the leaders of the major groups. The biggest gaffe, I think, that has happened yesterday was Ed Miliband and his bacon sandwich. I would think he's probably lost so much of the Jewish vote that he'll be regretting that picture of him eating a bacon sandwich. I don't think it was kosher.
Now, one other thing, I did see that tweet actually. And talking about Twitter and social media, I don't know whether it's just me, but certainly some of the parties have engaged with social media far better than others. And certainly looking at various tweets and things, it seems to me that they haven't engaged as much as they should have done.
They've not engaged in a sensible sort of way. I think it was the 3 party leaders stood up in 2010 and they said, we're looking to have a different form of politics, no Punch and Judy politics. And
which they claim every time, don't they?
They claim they're going to do that, and they're going to clean up their act, and actually they come straight in with Punch and Judy politics. And some of the social media just is a perfect weapon for engaging in Punch and Judy politics. Not very clever, but you are right, some have used it in a positive sort of way, some have used it in a negative way.
I mean, some of them just haven't, I just haven't seen that many tweets from the Tory group. They just don't seem to be as engaged as some of the other parties from the bits. I mean, you go on their election website, for example, it just doesn't seem as engaging as some of the others.
I think that's absolutely right. I think the Tories do suffer from an inbuilt arrogance that we're right, you're wrong, you know, and you will realise that sooner or later. And I think that comes out in as much as they think, oh, I'm not going to waste my time trying to engage with these people because they're incapable of understanding what it is we're trying to say. Well, we're not.
Now, looking at some of the other groups, one of the interesting ones, of course, is we're trying to compare between the 2012 election when all of the seats came up for grabs, only a third this time. And of course, between 2012 and now, of course, Whittlesdow has expanded massively, and of course that's probably going to be difficult to call because we don't really have much to compare with because of the expansion since then.
That's right. I mean, Rawton and Whittlesdow, I can remember when Rawton vied between Conservative and Liberal, not Liberal Democrats, but I can remember the Liberal Democrats having a considerable input into Rawton. But Whittlesdow brings with it a different type of person, somebody who might not feel inclined to the village life of Rawton and might feel more of an affinity with Swindon. And we don't know even where those people have moved from, who have moved into Whittlesdow. There's nothing that is being said about that. So Rawton and Whittlesdow is going to be a very interesting one that is not going to be easy to call. I'm not convinced that the voting there is going to go anything like the pattern that it had 2009.
Well, we're looking at it before, it was quite a strong, you know, that could change, as you say, if the profile has changed. The other one, looking at the Lydiard and Freshbrook, it seems to me that the Conservatives have such a narrow majority on that one. That could, I assume, be one that tumbles, and certainly one that Labour, I think, have been working very hard towards getting, haven't they?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think they have been looking at reasons to attack that seat, and I think they really should do well there. And it would be disappointing for them if they didn't.
Yeah.
If they don't eat into that very small majority, they're going to be very upset. Of course, one of the things that comes over in all these elections, when we have the 2009 election where all 57 seats were up for grabs, you have 3 candidates. And people very often, when they look at the voting figures and they look at the relationship now, they take the top person and they then consider it against the person who either came 4th or 5th. What you've got to do sometimes is look at the 3rd and the 4th, and the difference between them probably wasn't as
and
much.
especially
So
considering it's the third person who's actually up for election today.
Correct.
Well, Des, we're going to cut it there, but I just want to ask you, just before you go, we haven't got anything through yet, no results through yet. What's your prediction?
I think that there is going to be no overall control. I think that the Lib Dems will probably be the kingmakers, and we may have the shock of seeing for the first time in Swindon 2, maybe even 3 UKIP councillors. And it's going to be interesting to see who they come from.
Absolutely. Des, thank you very much
Thank you,
for
Alex.
joining us.
Good to see you too.
Thank you for joining us. Now, we would love to hear from you. Do, of course, get in contact on Twitter at SwindonWeb TV. We'd also like to hear you from email, video at swindonweb.tv, and also, of course, keep an eye on us online as well at swindonweb.com. Click on the feature story, and that's where you'll get all the videos that we've been making throughout the evening. And we've been talking a lot on air this evening. So much is happening, and it's really a truly, you know, people say there's elections which are exciting, it's nail-biting. This genuinely is. You know, you talk to everybody, and it really is very close to call. It really is a very sort of cliched comment to make, maybe, but there's so much more. The UKIP effect, this whole Lib Dem effect that's happening in Central that we're hearing about. What is going on in Swindon? Well, of course, within a few hours we will know, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes' time with another update. So thanks for joining us. I'm Alistair Greener for SwindonWeb TV. We'll be back soon. Hello, welcome back to SwindonWeb Live here at the Oasis. It's the count for the Swindon Borough elections. We've been here since 10 o'clock, and there's a really interesting picture emerging in the fact that nobody seems to know how it's going to go at all. Everyone seems to be fairly buoyant, but cautiously buoyant at the same time. Somebody who should be fairly upbeat at the moment is Mark Dempsey from the Labour group. You were hoping to get some significant gains this evening.
Well, I think that we've been working really hard. We've put our message across on the doorstep. both in terms of practical policies to help people with the cost of living, both in terms of the energy freeze, but also how...
But in fact, those are national issues as opposed to local ones.
Yeah, indeed, and we've mirrored that with our promise to reverse the Tories' green waste charge, and I think people have really welcomed that on the doorstep. But we've also mirrored that with policies to create a better future for our town in terms of town centre regeneration, bringing jobs into our local economy for young people, and a longer term plan for education and a university.
Now, lots of that, though, in fairness, which is a really good thing that Swindon Council have done. You've all worked together so that the regeneration plan in the centre, that's a cross-party support that has. So in fairness, no particular party can probably take credit for that.
We've worked really hard on that, and yes, you're right, we've reached out and worked in partnership with the Conservatives on that. I think many people feel frustrated that over the last 10 years things haven't moved on as quickly as they should have done, and we worked very hard to persuade the Conservatives of the need for a master plan for the town centre. I think people we speak to on the doorstep see places like Bristol and Bath want that change here in Swindon. That's exactly what I'm about as a politician. That's the kind of change I want for our town.
Well, of course, you're going for Justin Tomlin's seat in North Swindon next year, so this is your prelim for that. What are the sort of things that you were encountering on the doorstep as local issues? Because obviously you will make hay out of the national issues because obviously the trend is in your favour in that respect. Yeah. But what about local issues that you found on the doorstep that people were concerned about?
I think many people were very concerned about the green waste charge, and that's impacted particularly on those people, on those low-income pensioners, fixed incomes. I think those people are really struggling with the cost of living, and I think that has become a particularly big issue for people. But also issues like potholes. Many people are just see the state of their pavements, the state of their roads, and feel really frustrated that hasn't been fixed. Labour promised to increase investment in potholes and roads through money from the New Homes bonus. That's something that went down very well on the doorstep with people.
Now, what about the usual claim that people make against the Labour Party, that you're the spend party, that the council will go back into debt if you guys get in? How are you overcoming that on the doorstep to say, hang on a second, we've learned our lessons from the past, we're not just going to spend like crazy, we are going to be a bit more of a responsible party in that respect?
Yeah, well, we've promised to freeze council tax. For the last 3 years we voted to freeze council tax. And interestingly, the Conservatives, of course, have got the council into over £100 million worth of debt. So we've got real problems there with the way in which the council finances have been managed. They've wasted money, £15 million on a multi-storey car park in the centre of town, which I think could have been better spent on other projects. Money wasted on other issues in the town that really where they could have spent that money more wisely. Whale Bridge, for example, where most motorists just approach that junction and think, what an absolutely silly junction to develop. So I think we could be spending money much better in the town, and that's exactly what Labour talks about. Rather than spending money on consultants, rather than spending money wastefully sometimes on other projects in the council, we would have helped people with the cost of living by reversing their green waste charge.
Okay, well that's one thing that you're going to help them with. But what about the whole evening? This evening should be, you guys should be euphoric. You should be walking around the table thinking, "Whoopee, we're going great. We've got, we're in opposition in Westminster. We've got all these wonderful ideas." So you should be making some really significant gains, shouldn't you? Even only 5 seats, and you've got the council back in Labour control.
Well, I think Swindon is very finely balanced politically at the moment. It's very, very close between the two political parties. We've worked really hard. I genuinely don't know what the results are. I've looked at a few tables, but at the moment it seems to me that even those people that are looking through the ballot papers aren't really sure exactly how the results are going to pan out. So we've only got maybe another couple of hours before we'll actually know some hard results, and we'll look forward and we'll analyse those results when they come out. But we've done everything that we possibly can to show the vision for the town that we have.
To show that you're actually on the right track, what would be a bare minimum of success for you this evening?
Oh, I don't make those kinds of forecasts. As I said, I think as politicians, all we can do is to work as hard as we can to campaign on the issues that we care about and that we hear from the doorstep people care about. And really, it's a democracy, and it's a wonderful thing, democracy, and it's up to the voters now to cast their judge, as they have done today, about their views on the kind of country and the kind of town that they want to see in the future. We'll just have to wait and see what they said.
But it is a reflection of how you've resonated on the doorstep, whether people have actually believed what you have said you're going to deliver and so on. It surely is a reflection on that, isn't it?
Of course, every election is a reflection on that. All I all I'm saying is I don't know what the result is yet. So it's very difficult for me to be either euphoric or disappointed when I don't know exactly what the result is going to look like. We'll just have to wait and see in the next hour or so.
Now, there's a few seats which if you are going to succeed, if you are going to certainly knock the Tories off from the control of the council, places like Lydia of Freshbrook,
yeah.
I mean, that's a very marginal seat. I presume that one is one that you're aiming to get.
I think there's several seats there that I think are going to go down to the wire, which were very close to the 2012 local elections where we made very strong gains across the town, and I think that those same seats are going to be extremely close tonight. It felt very close as we were campaigning during the day today, and it looks very close from what I understand the tables look like. It looks very close at the moment. I don't think anybody can call those results at the moment.
Now, what about the UKIP effect? Because it's such a game changer from last time. They only fielded 8 candidates last time. They've now fielded candidates for every single ward. They are doing well in the national polls. Traditionally, people seem to think that they're going to take from the Conservatives, but one of the things we're feeling tonight is that they seem to have been taking from the Labour Party as well.
They are taking from Labour. I think we're going to get a sense tonight as to what proportion they take from the Conservatives and what proportion they take from Labour. I think the sense has been that they normally take more from the Conservatives than they do from Labour, but I suspect that they will take some votes from us as well. We will see. We will wait and see. We felt during the day that things were going, we ran a very strong campaign and worked very hard, but it's always very difficult in politics. Sometimes things, the result is different to the way in which things feel during the day. So we just have to wait and see.
Now, Swindon is often seen as the gauge for the rest of the country. It is one of those, as you said earlier on, it's a marginal seat. So are eyes from London watching you and seeing how you do?
I think so, yes. And Swindon is a bellwether seat. It's a very important seat in a general election, and both seats are going to be marginal constituencies that we very much hope to take at the general election. So I think that people are going to look at Swindon and see how the parties are faring. I think that's inevitable.
And of course, we can't not mention Edmund Man, not because I'm not going to mention the obvious one, but the fact is that for you looking to take North Swindon's seat next year, he would be your leader. So how do you feel about the fact that his performance during the last 6 months or so going into next year? I mean, this is a massive gauge on him, isn't it? Labour have got to perform well tonight to give them that impetus to go forward into next year's election.
I think Ed's done a brilliant job as leader, and I think he set the agenda, particularly on issues like the cost of living crisis, where the promise on freezing energy prices, I think, has really set the agenda and revealed a whole issue around the way in which energy is priced in this country, which is now being investigated, as I understand it. So I think he set the agenda on those particular issues.
But in fairness, those aren't really resonating in the polls. The polls aren't reflecting that that's really hitting home. So are there other things that he maybe needs to start focusing on as well?
I think they've resonated in the people that we've spoken to on the doorstep. Okay. People are really struggling with the cost of living. They're really struggling with energy prices. And I think the Ed Miliband's promise on freezing energy prices has been something that has been very strong for people. I worry, I suppose, that sometimes we get caught in the soap opera of politics. And what I think happened a couple of days ago is a little bit of an example of that. In my view, politics should be about inspiring people. It should be about hope. It should be about a vision for the future. And we shouldn't get caught too much in the kind of soap opera of politics.
But of course,
that to me doesn't matter too much to people. They're worried about what politics means to their day-to-day lives. And that's what we should be talking about.
But the responsibility of that is not just with the media. Of course, that's down to politicians themselves. But Mark, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. We will no doubt talk later on, see how you do, and I think it's going to be a very interesting night, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah.
Mark, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks a lot. Well, if you would like to get more information, of course, do follow us online. We're at SwindonWeb.com. Click on the feature page. That's where you'll get all the latest analysis. You'll get the latest reports from us throughout the night. We're going to be here right to the point where we actually determine who is going to be in control, if anybody, of the council tomorrow morning. And also follow us on Twitter. We'd love to hear your feedback on Twitter, so please do tweet. We're at SwindonWeb TV. Thanks for joining us. We're back in about 5-10 minutes with more information as the results. Hopefully, well, we're getting to about just nearly midnight, so maybe another half an hour, we might get a sense of how things are going to turn out this evening. See you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, the result for the Mannington and Western Ward is as follows. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at the above elections, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Jeffrey King, Liberal Democrat, 152. James Philip Robbins, Labour Party candidate, 977. Carol Ann Sidney Smith, the Conservative Party candidate, 561. Lincoln Vincent Williams, UK Independence Party candidate, 598. And there were 20 votes rejected, and therefore I do hereby declare that James Philip Robbins is duly elected as Councillor for Mannington and Weston.
Hello, welcome back to SwindonWeb Live. We're here at the Oasis for the count. In fact, the very first result has just come in. It was a safe Labour seat. That was Mannington and Weston. Labour again sailed through that. 977 votes. The next was 598. But this is the real key thing. Labour did reduce their majority marginally, but this is a big thing. UKIP came in second, just beating the Conservatives into third. So maybe that's a little bit of a picture of this evening. The Liberal Democrat vote seemed to have collapsed. They only got 152 votes. So quite an interesting picture, although that was a strong Labour hold. It's maybe sent a little bit of a signal to what's actually happened, and it certainly would seem that most of the UKIP votes came from between the Liberals, the Labour, and some from Conservatives, maybe evenly across the board. But anyway, to talk more about their standing at this election, increasing the amount of people standing for election from 10 to 12, is Talis Kimberley from the Green Party. Good evening.
Hello there.
Lovely to see you. First of all, your gauge of this evening. What's the feeling around the tables? Everyone seems to be, there's this mixture of nervousness and excitement and so on.
It's the first time I've been present at one of these. It's very exciting to be here at, Democracy in Action, actually, and to know that all of those yellow slips and the ones in my ward, my name's on there. It's very exciting to see it actually happening.
So what about actually on the doorstep? Of course, now it's, the amount of people in the field has increased.
Yeah.
So therefore it's becoming tougher and tougher and tougher to actually get yourself noticed, and especially with UKIP making such a big presence. Have you felt a bit more of a squeeze? It is such as a marginal party anyway. Have you felt more of a squeeze there, or have you felt you've made some real inroads?
Actually, I feel we've made progress. I've found the doorstep canvassing I've done and the other canvassing I've done very positive. I've had a lot of goodwill, a lot of familiarity, a lot of, I know you from so-and-so, I know you from here, because I've been very involved in my community. So I think for a lot of folk, that locality is important. People have told me that for them, the first cut for who they'll vote for is, are they local, or have they come in from out of town?
To be honest though, does that really make a difference? Because when you look at people, tend to vote against what happens in Westminster, they vote against what the incumbent parties are. In a PR situation like the European elections, there's an element to this, but, on a local basis, do you think, that really does make a big difference?
I think it does, you're right. It's confusing. People vote and don't vote for all sorts of different reasons. So there's a group of people who still vote very tribally. I vote for X because I've always voted for X, my family vote for X, and that's what I'll vote for, even if I think they're not doing very well or I don't like the way the party's going, they get my vote. That's what I am. There are still a bunch of people who identify with the party that way. So I think that tribalism is shifting. I think it's partly demographic, and I think my generation and younger don't feel as tribally connected to a party as that. Then there's a group of people who, as I say, will go for somebody local. And I've been told on a number of occasions, well, first of all, who's local? This one, this one, this one. Right, the rest can forget it. Which one's local? Who do I know? And in a community, when you're taking it down to ward level, somebody who you're familiar with, they've been involved in community projects, you actually know them, you've got friends in common, that counts for a lot. Surprisingly, what's been missing from a lot of the picture for me in canvassing has been people talking about policies. I think because of the local thing, if people have seen somebody in action, I saw how you managed that project that you're involved with, I know from so-and-so that you do a lot of work on the such and such that you volunteer with, those sort of things, then that may convince them to put their vote in your hand. So there's the tribal vote, and there's the personal vote. This is on a local level. Obviously for European and for others it goes very differently.
Now what's quite interesting is actually green issues have come up in this election.
Yes.
You know, they've been talking about the recycling, we're talking about the green bins,
Yeah.
the Conservatives talking about their solar panels.
Yeah.
So you've in a sense got people on side talking about green issues, but
Yes.
have you been able to attribute them to your party as opposed to the other parties who now are just getting on board and saying, well, hey, listen, you don't need to vote for them because we're doing it anyway?
I don't think we need to try and claim what other people are also doing. Everybody knows the Green Party has always been about that. So if other people are now saying we're all for renewable power, then great, good, we're all agreed on that. Good, can we move the debate on to something else where there are other things to talk about? Let's talk about the social injustice. Let's talk about the tax avoidance. You know, let's talk about whether we're okay with the fact that there are food banks opening left, right and centre. Because we all agree that we need renewable power, and the debate is now only how much of that, how soon, who pays, you know, and how quickly can we get it online.
So what are some of the other issues that you've found that you've been really very much at the forefront with within Swindon that aren't necessarily green issues? Because as you quite rightly say, people see you as the Green Party
Yes.
for obvious reasons by virtue of your name, but then they think, well, what else do they actually do? What else do they stand for?
Sure, well we do have a full suite of policies on everything, you know, from jobs and finance, you know, down to the deep green things that people think of. Oddly enough, I've had people go both ways with that. I've had people say, oh, you're a one-issue party. All you are on about is you know, is the environment. Actually, if that was all we were talking about, I think having a habitable, you know, biosphere, having fresh water and food that one can eat, and a place that one can live in as a species, I think that's a pretty good kind of, you know, single issue to get interested about. But equally, I've had other people say, oh, but you're talking about, you know, HS2, you're talking about renationalising the railways. We don't want to hear about that from the Green Party. You know, that's not very green, is it? So you can't please all of the people all the time, really.
So what about tonight? How do you think the Greens will do tonight?
I think we'll have an increased share of the vote, certainly on proportion. I said we've got more, we're fielding more candidates than we have before. I've seen, certainly from my doorstepping, quite a lot of support and goodwill. People who wouldn't have voted saying, I wasn't going to bother, but if you're standing, I'll give you a go. Which is lovely.
Yeah.
People who are voting for the first time, who've been disillusioned and you know, thought it wasn't something they could affect. What I've said to people all along is, you know, it's not about picking the winner. You don't get points for style if the one that you pick happens to come in ahead. It's about putting your vote behind the one that you believe in. That it makes a statement that says, this is what I want, this is what I support. And every vote, you know, if you get 26 or 273, every vote matters to the person who stood, to all of these people here who've put their names, their time and their effort into standing. I mean, it's been the first time I've done that. It's been an adventure. I've learned a lot. I'd happily do it again. So for all of those, each individual vote counts. And for everybody who votes for one of the minority parties, for example, seeing everybody else who's voted for them also makes them think, well, I'm in company, you know? Several hundred other people also made that decision. There are people who think the way I do. And it also sends a message to everybody else, because every vote that the Green Party gets is a vote that the other guys didn't get. So I'm glad that they're taking on board some of what are largely considered Green Party issues. So they should, you know? And if they want the vote that we're getting, they need to do more of that.
Well, Charlotte, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you very
I
much.
hope it is a great night for you.
Thank
We
you.
will certainly see
Thank you very
what
much
happens.
indeed.
So thanks very much indeed for your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you.
And of course, as I said before, do watch out for us. We're online, SwindonWeb.tv, and on there, SwindonWeb.com is what you need to be looking at on the feature page if you want to follow us with all of these reports that we're doing right through the evening. And we'll get to the point where, of course, we will be declaring exactly who is going to be in charge of the council, if anybody, by tomorrow morning. Also follow us on Twitter at SwindonWeb TV and give us some feedback. Ask us, if you'd like me to ask some questions to some of the candidates and to some of the party leaders, then I'd be delighted to do that. We'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, we'll be back soon. The results are starting to come in. In fact, the first one came in about 10 minutes ago at 12:05. And if you just tuned in, that was actually Mannington and Weston, which was held by Labour, a stronghold for Labour. They were expected to hold it, but what was interesting is the Conservatives were beaten to third place by UKIP. So some interesting results coming up, and we've just had some more information here. We've got Swindon Elections coming up live, an interview with Stephen Morris from The Guardian. He's going to be chatting to me. I've just found out from Twitter, so there you go. See, we're finding out from Twitter ourselves, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes, so stay with us.
For the Penhill and Upper Stratton Ward, I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Robert Oliver Heritage, the Green Party, 153. Harriet Catherine Maltby, the Conservative Party candidate, 712. David John Rowland, UK Independent Party candidate, 872. And Joseph William Cray, the Labour Party candidate, 1195. With 10 votes rejected. I do hereby declare that Joseph William Cray is duly elected as a member for Penhill and Upper Stratton Ward. Thank you.
Well, a very interesting result. Again, it was a very safe Labour seat. You'd have expected Labour to have held that. But again, the Conservative group being pushed into third place. The Green Party, 153 votes. But the big question is, where did UKIP take votes from? The Tories there with 712. That's a good deal less than the UKIP party. So really interesting where all those votes came from. And sorry about that, our camera just collapsed. So anyway, we'll just carry on because that's what we do. Camera's just come off its stand actually. But of course the results coming in thick and fast now, so interesting to see how that happens. But UKIP making some significant votes. These aren't just small votes, 872 votes there, with the Labour Party with 1,195. They've become serious challengers. We haven't had a safe Tory seat come in yet. That'll be the interesting one to see how the Tories do with that. Will that be the first casualty for the Tories to go to UKIP? We'll have to wait and see. But certainly the evening's working out to be very interesting and certainly looking to be a very, very good evening indeed for UKIP so far. We'll be back in 10 minutes or as soon as another vote comes through.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the results for the election for the Priory Vale Ward. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Michelle John Lambert Agostino, Labour Party candidate, 513. Emma Louise Faramasi, the Conservative Party candidate, 1232. Margaret Cooper, Liberal Democrat candidate, 158. And Balbir Singh Virid, UK Independent Party candidate, 519, with 13 rejected ballot papers. I do hereby declare that Emma Louise Faramasi is duly elected as the member for Parliament.
Has just gone over to be chatting to another member of the media. Very interesting result. That was the first safe Conservative seat to come in. So it was very interesting to see what the results would be for the UK Independence Party for that. And I've just found out that in fact that's the biggest majority the Conservatives have ever had in Priory Vale, a stonking 1,232. The nearest to them was, interesting enough, the UK Independence Party, 519, and the Labour were beaten into third place there. So again, UKIP, pushing the other parties into third place. Liberal vote there, just 158, very poor showing there for them. But again, the Tories quite jubilant about that result. That the safe seat for them remained, in fact, even safer than it had been before. Let me just turn the lights on. So those are the results there. So 3 seats in so far. They're all safe seats. So of course all the parties are waiting to see what the marginal seats are doing. And I guess those are going to take a little bit longer to get those results. But at the moment, the only real trend that's showing is that the UKIP are putting in a tremendous showing but haven't affected the major results yet. But it's very early in the night. Only 3 of the wards have been voted on or come in so far this evening. We've still got another 16 to go, so we'll keep you updated with how that goes and what the absolute trends are going to be, and will UKIP get their first seat or not. Hello, welcome back. The returning officers just talking to the candidates at the moment. They're verifying the results, but what's particularly interesting now is that we're going to be getting our very first marginal seat. Now this is the Hayden Wick. It's at the moment held by the Tories, but the Labour Party only needed about a 15% swing to be able to get this. Now this could be the telling moment of whether UKIP managed to split that vote or not. The other seat that's going to be declared is Chisleden and Lawn. That should be a safe Conservative seat, but we'll see if that actually applies or not. So the results coming in thick and fast at the moment. Still no indication, no game changers yet, but Hayden Wick could be the first one that we see. I've just been speaking to Dustin Tomlinson, MP for North Swindon. He's saying that in fact North Swindon is doing very well for the Tories and the vote is holding up very well. Well, let's see if it does for Hayden Wick or not. This could be a really, really important result for them. Remember, they just need 1 seat to go, 1 ward seat to go, and they've lost control of the council. And UKIP have been doing incredibly well. Now, of course, he's just talking to all the various candidates over there at the moment. That's the returning officer. This is more of really just process. So everyone agrees on the results. Is everyone in agreement? And here he comes to give the results now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the results for Hayden Wick and for Chisleden and Lawn. And I will declare the Chisleden and Lawn results first. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being the returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Irene Ann Cook, Labour Party candidate, 373. Raymond James, Liberal Democrat candidate, 109. Jennifer Mary Jeffries, UK Independence Party candidate, 457. Eric Shaw, the Conservative Party candidate, 911, and Paul Summers, the Green Party candidate, 207. And there were 10 ballot papers rejected, and I do hereby declare that Eric Shaw is duly elected as Councillor for Chisleden and Lawn. Ladies and gentlemen, results for the Hayden Wick election is as follows. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Maura Julia Clark, Labour Party candidate, 1019. Edmund Gerrard, UK Independence Party candidate, 816. Gary John Perkins, the Conservative Party candidate, 1209, and Gary Porter, Liberal Democrat candidate, 145, with 19 ballot papers rejected, and I do hereby declare that Gary John Perkins is duly elected as the member for Hayden Wick Ward.
Well, that's the very first test for the Conservatives, and you can see a fairly jubilant group behind me, because that was the first really close to marginal seat. The Labour Party needed a 15% swing, and when we heard the Labour Party getting 1,019 votes, and with the waiting to hear what the results were going to be for the UK Independence Party, we weren't too sure. Now, Shaw is a very interesting one. That's just coming up now, and Shaw has been quite a controversial seat, so we'll see whether the Tories have managed to hold on to that. Again, it would have taken quite a swing for Labour to have got that, but let's go through Hayden Wick again. The Tories hold on to that with 1,209 votes. UKIP came in third this time. They didn't come in second, they came in third. The Liberal Democrat vote again down to 145. That's really where a lot of the votes seem to be just completely melting away from them. Labour 1019, so close, but actually, interestingly enough, the margins were actually slightly increased for the Conservatives. They actually increased their majority slightly.
during that. So really, really interesting. It's certainly a good sign for the Conservatives at the moment, but of course the biggest and most marginal seats have yet to be declared. That's Lydiard and Freshbrook. We're waiting to hear the results on that one, and also St Margaret and South Marston. Those are probably going to be the most marginal seats the Conservatives will be worried about, to see if they keep them. If they do, then they might actually be with a chance of actually maintaining their hold in the council, but it's still way too early, with literally only 5 results in out of 19. It's really too close to call, and that UK Independence Party, the UKIP vote, is really making a significant difference. They're talking now about Shaw, so we'll come back to in just a few moments with the returning officer and the results for Shaw.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the results for the Escott and the Leiden, Elgin and Park South wards. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being the returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. David Malcolm Bell, the Conservative Party candidate, 263. Emma Bushell, Labour Party candidate, 930. Terence Richard Davis, UK Independence Party candidate, 278. John Valentine Hughes, the Green Party candidate, 195. And Dave Wood, Liberal Democrat Focus Team candidate, 1308, with 10 ballot papers rejected. And I do hereby declare that Dave Wood is duly elected as councillor for Escott Ward. The result for the Leiden, Elgin and Park South ward is as follows. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Graham Charles Cherry, the Conservative Party candidate, 807. David Christopher Miles, Green Party candidate, 129. Derek Joseph Montrose, Labour Party candidate, 978. Hannah Pajak McCann, Liberal Democrat candidate, 94. And Robert William Shepherd, UK Independence Party candidate, 798. And 14 ballot papers were rejected. And I hereby do declare that Derek Joseph Montrose is duly elected as the councillor for Leiden, Elgin and Park South. Thank you.
So just got 2 more seats in. The interesting one there was Escott, because of course that was the only seat that the Liberal Democrats were actually defending. He actually increased his majority there, did incredibly well, Dave Wood, 1,308 votes. Now, interesting enough, all the other votes, they literally were very, very low. Labour, though, were next by far, 930, and the Conservatives and UKIP down to the 200s. UKIP coming in third, beating the Conservatives into 4th place on that particular one. The next one, there were some interesting rumours talking about the Leiden, Elgin and Park South, a very safe Labour seat, and it remained Labour, but listen to this, they got 978, and the Tories 807, much, much closer than before, and UKIP 798. So really, really close there, and certainly not the massive majority that they had before. Again, the Liberals were beaten into 5th place. Even the Greens got more votes than the Liberal Democrats in Leiden, Elgin and Park South. So quite a result there. Again, still no shocks. Everything is staying pretty much as it was from the 2012 election. We're still waiting to see if there's any shocks. The big ones, of course, is St Margaret and South Marston. That's one we're waiting for, and Lydiard and Freshbrook. Those will be the ones that will be hotly contested, that the Conservatives will be concerned about. That's the ones they could lose to Labour. Will UKIP split those votes? We'll have to wait and see. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, not quite halfway yet. Waiting to see the UKIP group over there. Not exactly ecstatic, but maybe they're happy that they've actually got such great results, but they have yet to win their first seat on the council.
and at the end of the day, that's what they really need.
Will the candidates and agents for Rodbourne Cheney Ward come to the stage, please?
Now, Rodbourne Cheney, he's just about to declare. That again is another very safe Labour seat. There probably, or there certainly shouldn't be many shocks there. Labour have got it by far, so we'll have to wait and see with that. It certainly looks like the turnout is pretty high, perhaps because it's combined with the European elections. Who knows? One of the things that's going around, a lot of people are saying that there's a huge amount of thing about where you're voting UKIP in the European, where you're voting it locally, and the chances are you voted the same in both ballot papers. Who knows if that's true or not? But there's certainly no elation here in the hall. Looking around, you can see it's all quite muted and quite quiet. But a few people making the move, but generally I think people are just waiting for those real key seats. And waiting for a shock. No shock yet, apart from UKIP are beating the leading parties in particular respective wards quite often into third place. Not always, but quite often. In fact, interesting enough, in that last one that we did, which was, I'm trying to remember which one that was now, when they actually wound up being third, where they had been second. But here comes the next result. This is Rodbourne Cheney, should be Labour.
We have results for the Rodbourne Cheney election. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Simon Jonathan Fairbairn, the Green Party candidate, 174. Diane Nicola Rogers, the Conservative Party candidate, 668. Peter Thompson Watt, UK Independent Party candidate, 859, and Peter William David Watt, the Labour Party candidate, 1305. And there were 20 ballot papers rejected, and I do hereby declare that Peter William David Watt is duly elected as Councillor for Rodbourne Cheney.
We've just got some really big results coming in, and these are the first the real marginal seats coming in. St Margaret and South Marston, 9% swing needed for Labour to be able to get that, so that'll be interesting to see. Old Town as well, there's been a lot of controversy about Old Town. At the moment, if you remember that Labour took the seat from the Conservatives last time, but with a margin of just 7 votes, so the Tories will be looking to try and get that back. Cobingham and Dorking, possibility of the Tories trying to get that back from Labour. Again, that was a very close one last time, but again, we'll have to wait and see. Will the UK Independence Party, will UKIP have made an effect? Anyway, here come the results of the next seat.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 more results. We have Old Town, we have St Margaret and South Marston, and we have Cobingham and Dorking. I will read Old Town results first. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being the returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Claire Ann Ellis, the Conservative Party candidate, 1067. Deborah King, Liberal Democrat candidate, 171. John Fairland Short, UK Independent Party candidate, 365, and Nadine Carroll Watt, the Labour Party candidate, 1352. And the number of ballot papers rejected were 25, and I do hereby declare that Nadine Carroll Watt is duly elected as the member for Old Town. The result for the Cobingham and Dorking election is as follows. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Brian James Osborne, UK Independent Party candidate, 926. Kevin James Parry, the Conservative Party candidate, 1449. Julian Charles Price, the Labour Party candidate, 1186. And Chantal Smith, the Green Party candidate, 141. And there were 10 ballot papers rejected. and I do hereby declare that Kevin James Parry is duly elected as the Secretary. And the result for the St Margaret and South Marston ward is as follows. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. James Faulkner, UK Independence Party candidate, 893. Colin Peter Lovell, the Conservative Party candidate, 1351. Clive Cutty, Liberal Democrat candidate, 160. And Christopher William James John Watt, the Labour Party candidate, 1039, with 16 ballot papers rejected. And I do hereby declare that Colin Peter Lovell is duly elected as Councillor for St Margaret and South Martin.
Now, the reason you see the Tory group so ecstatic there, we've had the first upset of the evening, and it's not the upset we would have expected. We would have expected the Labour group to be gaining seats, the Tories to be losing them, but that, Cobingham and Dorking, was the first seat that the Tories have actually taken from Labour. Labour had that very marginally. The Conservatives only needed a 2% swing, but they did it, and in fact that's the highest result of the night, 1,449 votes. Interestingly enough, the UKIP party still did very well, 926, but Labour significantly behind. The Tories there had about 250 as a majority, which is a significant amount. It's also worth mentioning St Margaret and South Marston, because that was a seat that the Labour Party really needed to get from the Tories, but they failed in that quest. The Labour Party 1039, Conservatives in fact increased their majority by nearly 300, in fact over 300, to 1351. UKIP 893. It's a Liberal vote that seems to me to have really collapsed here. I mean, they're down to last place, 5th place in one of the things, even the Greens beating them. So a pretty disastrous night, apart from, of course, they did hold on to Escott. So in fact, at this rate, they'll have the same amount of councillors actually on the council of 4, because they did keep it, but their vote in all of the other areas seems to have gone right down. So the only shock at the moment is that the Tories have actually increased their lead. They now have a margin of 2 seats. Now we've still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to declare. 11 declared already, 8 to go. And looking at those seats, they should all be fairly safe, apart from the big one, of course, is Lydiard and Freshbrook. Now, even if the Tories lose that, they are still one ahead. So, you know, there has to be a fairly major upset for the Conservatives now not to hold on to the council. I mean, this is an extraordinary result, and certainly not what anybody would have expected. Now, we'll have to wait and see. This is nail-biting stuff, but looking around the room, the only people who actually seem quite happy this evening are the Tories at the moment. So our first upset, we'll have to see if there are any more, and see if Labour can manage to get that swing in the other wards. Now, one of the things we were waiting to see was whether UKIP actually managed to upset the power. Did they manage to split the vote? But no. Now,
the candidates for Shaw, Water and Fibre, and Wolverhampton Park North, Wolverhampton Park North, Water and Fibre, and
so that's 3 more that are about to declare. Now, Shaw, again, Shaw should be a safe Tory seat. Hello there.
Hello, I'm I believe, new councillor for Shaw.
It hasn't been declared, so we can't say that yet.
Exactly.
So we'll have to wait and see.
Yep.
But anyway, are you not going to go over there and find out and be official? Well, that was really random, wasn't it? But who knows? Well, if that's true in Shaw, then of course that's just the Conservatives holding on to their place. But we'll have to wait and see until it's officially declared. The other seats that were there, Walcott and Park North, again a very safe Labour seat for there. And I'm trying to think which was the other one which was going to be announced. I think it was Gorse Hill and Pinehurst was the other one that's going to be announced. And again, that's a very safe Labour seat. So really not expecting any particular shocks here.
things carry on. But again, the big shock news so far is that the Tories are actually now got 2 seats to secure their future in the council, but there's still quite a few seats to be declared and 1 or 2 marginals to go as well. Now, we'd love to hear your feedback. What are you making of all of this news that's coming out? Do let us know on Twitter at SwindonWeb TV, email video@swindonweb.tv, and again, go onto our website, SwindonWeb, click on the features page, and that's where you'll find all my reports of the evening, so you'll be able to see how the evening has actually panned out. But it's just been an amazing evening so far. UKIP have got a lot of votes, but not a seat yet. And they certainly haven't caused an upset yet, which is what we were expecting. So we're just about to get the next 3 seats are going to be announced. That again, they're fairly safe seats. 2 safe Labour seats and 1 reasonably safe Tory seat. Will it be still safe? And there's literally, we've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to go. That's it. So at the time of, we're not even 1 o'clock yet, 10 to 1, quarter to 1, and the results are flying in thick and fast, and the news is very, very different to what we would have expected. And you can see the big huddle over here. This is where the returning officer is talking to the candidates. He's letting them know what the official figures are. They then all have to agree to the official announcement to declare who is the council winner.
Labour Party candidate 862. In for Liberal Democrats 113. Nigel Pettis-Kimber, the Green Party candidate 203. Doing one Mary Martin, the Conservative Party candidate 1122. Richard Norman Simons, Independent candidate 223, and Christopher Tyler, UK Independent Party candidate 552. And there were 9 ballot papers rejected, and I do hereby declare that Doingman Mary Martin is duly elected as the Councillor for Shaw. The results of the Walcotton Park North election is as follows. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Abdul Amin, the Labour Party candidate, 1144. Pavlos Katsinopoulos, Social Democratic Party candidate, 14. Kathleen McCarthy, Liberal Democrat candidate, 177. Jennifer Ann Miles, the Green Party candidate, 171. Emily Jean Pryor, the Conservative Party candidate, 566. And Melanie Simone Stanbury, the UK Independent Party candidate, 837. And there were 11 ballot papers rejected, and I do hereby declare that Abdul Amin is duly elected as Councillor for Walcott and Park North. And the results of the Gorton and Pinehurst election is as follows. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Edward Mark Gillens, the Conservative Party candidate, 716. Ian Christopher Robertson Molden, the UK Independent Party candidate, 791. Carol Hannah Shelley, the Labour Party candidate, 1152. And Stephen Thompson, the Green Party candidate, 266. And there were 5 ballot papers rejected, and I do hereby declare that Carol Hannah Stanley is duly elected as the Councillor for Gorton and Pinehurst. Thank you.
So as we predicted, they were exactly the results that one would have expected. They were fairly safe seats, sure, for the Tories, and they did well with that.
They basically kept their majority the same as it was. UKIP actually didn't do particularly well there. They were way behind Labour with 862 and UKIP there with 552. Again, it was a Liberal vote that collapsed, only 113 votes for them. And there was an independent candidate there, and they even beat the Liberals as well. They were 223, and in fact the Greens got 203 votes. So in fact, the Liberals were beaten to 6th place in that particular ward. Gortall and Pinehurst, again another safe Labour ward, and again the Labour Party there did very well, 11152. Again, that's Blunton and Highworth and Wroughton Whitchurstow should both be fairly strong, safe Tory seats. And in fact, these two seats could be the ones that, in fact, no, it's 3 more to declare. The Conservatives need a few more before they know that they've actually made it and retained it. But there's one still marginal seat to go, and that, of course, is Lydiard and Freshbrook. So we're being held on to the pretty well the end here to see with that. But coming back to Gortall and Pinehurst, again, the Labour Party holding on to that seat. The Conservatives beaten into 3rd place there, and the Greens were 266. So again, we're not really seeing, the only upset of the night so far has been Tories taking 1 seat from the Labour Party. UKIP has had an effect, but they seem to have split the vote quite a lot, sometimes beating one of the major parties into 3rd place, but they haven't had an effect where they've actually affected the result. Not yet. We've still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to declare. One of those, only one of them is a marginal, but who knows, there still could be an upset. Blunton and Highworth needs to be a 28% split. Who knows, maybe the UKIP might make an effect there. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, so we're just waiting at the moment. There's a huddle taking place while the candidates for Blunton and Highworth and also Wroughton and Whitchurstow, they find out. Now, if you remember, we talked about Wroughton and Whitchurstow earlier on. That's where the profile of the resident there has changed slightly with the expansion of the Whitchurstow estate. So it's expanded so much that we don't really know what's going to happen there. Could that be an upset for the Tories? Of course, Wroughton being traditionally fairly blue, but what's going to happen there in Whitchurstow? So we'll have to wait. Those are 2 big results coming in any moment, and the returning officer is just clarifying with them, and then we'll make the results.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the result for the Blunton and Highworth ward. I, the representative returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice of the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Philip Henry Raymond Beaumont, the Labour Party candidate, 831. Andrew Donald Day, the Green Party candidate, 245. Clive Hooper, Liberal Democrat candidate, 125. Ross Kudar, the UK Independent Party candidate, 245. The Conservative Party candidate, 1689. And there were 10 ballot papers rejected, and I do hereby declare that Stephen Mark Weisinger is duly elected as the Councillor for Blunton and Highworth.
Well, that was a fairly predicted result for Blunton and Highworth. The Tories held on to that, which they should have done, but with a very much increased majority, which is extraordinary considering UKIP, the UKIP effect. But they actually came 3rd. Labour beat them into 2nd on this occasion. But the Tories, I mean, look at this as a balance. Tories 1689, Labour 831. That was the closest next vote. I mean, an extraordinary win. And of course, a lot of talk up there in Blunton and Highworth. The residents of Highworth concerned about the encroachment into Highworth. Would it then become part of Greater Swindon? And again, it looks on this basis that the people there seem to trust the Tories more than anybody else to deliver what they want. So we're now waiting. We've got 4 more results. We've got Central, where we're hearing some very interesting talk about Central. Apparently the Liberal Democrat candidate there is apparently sounding very good, so we'll have to wait and see there. And in fact, we've also got Andrews to go, a very safe Tory seat, and we've also got 2 others as well. So still 4 seats to go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have results for Lydiard and Frexbrook and Rawton and Whitchelston. The result for Lydiard and Frexbrook is as follows. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the election is as follows. John Lenton, UK Independent Party candidate, 791. Mohammed Jamal Mia, Labour Party candidate, 925. Livio Pavoni, the Green Party candidate, 140. Christopher Shepherd, Liberal Democrat Party candidate, 178. And Timothy Robin Swinyard, the Conservative Party candidate, 1190. And the number of ballots taken rejected is 12. And I do hereby declare that Timothy and Robin Swinyard is duly elected as the councillor for Lydiard and Frexbrook. And the result for Rawton Whitchelston Ward is as follows. I, Stephen Peter Taylor, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Georgina Taylor, Liberal Democrat, candidate 490. Wayne Lawrence Crabb, the Conservative Party candidate, 867. Paul Andrew Dixon, the Labour Party candidate, 360. Travis Fairborn, the Green Party candidate, 281. John Francis Newman, the Independent candidate, 124. And Susan Amelia Short, UK Independent Party candidate, 483. And the number of ballot papers rejected was 15. And I do hereby declare that Wayne Lawrence Crabb is duly elected as member for Rawton and Whitchelston. Thank you. Well, the remarkable news out of this is it does now look like the Tories have actually held on to the council by 1, maybe even 2 seats. There's only 2 more wards to declare. One of them is a safe Labour seat. The other one is the Tories are looking to hold. Even if they lost it, which is highly unlikely because it's St Andrews and they've got a strong hold there, they would still be down to 1. So a remarkable result. And certainly it's quite an extraordinary. Now actually we're very lucky, we've got a special guest, he's Steve Morris from The Guardian, who's been here watching the events as well. Some incredible results tonight, not really what we'd have expected, is it?
I find it very interesting. I mean, I must admit I've come mainly to have a look at how Labour's doing here, and they're not doing very well, are they?
Well, they actually lost one of their seats, they haven't gained any so far, there's only 2 left to declare. And they've actually lost one of the seats to the Tories, which is reversing a trend that one would have expected.
Yeah.
What do you make of that from what you've heard?
It seems to us that Labour should be doing well here. If they're going to do well in the general election next year, they've got to come to places like Swindon and win. If they don't, then Miliband's going to be really struggling in the general election next year. I've seen a lot of miserable Labour faces around here tonight saying we've got to do better, we've got to find a way to reconnect with our voters. They've been saying that for years though, haven't they? We've got to do that, and they're just clearly not doing it in places like this.
So what about the UK Independence Party? I mean, they've sometimes pushed one of the major parties into 3rd place on quite a few occasions tonight. They haven't caused an upset, but they have scored significantly, some very high votes coming in for them.
They've done very well, haven't they? Nigel Farage hasn't been here, has he, on the campaign trail? He hasn't thought Swindon's a good place to come to. It's just one of those places we might do okay. They've put a lot of candidates here and clearly worked quite hard. And they've done very well here tonight. They'll be very pleased.
But of course, they haven't actually got themselves a seat out of it, but they have got some considerable votes.
Considerable votes, and they told me their membership's up 50% here, so that's great stuff for them.
And it seems it must be coming from Labour, but also looking at the Liberal vote, the Liberal Democrat vote seems to have just collapsed, apart from Escott, which is the one seat where they actually increased their majority, did very, very well. We've still got Central to come through, which apparently word has it they might be doing well, but what do you make of their vote?
They're struggling because of the national picture, aren't they? Nick Clegg isn't popular, the Lib Dems aren't popular, they're not going to do well in places like this. I'm going to Cheltenham tomorrow to see how they do there. That's a Liberal Democrat stronghold. If they collapse there, they're in real trouble next year.
So looking at next year, a lot of people are using this as the barometer for the 2015 general election. Ed Miliband's got to do some work, hasn't he?
He's got to do lots of work, hasn't he? He's got to learn the name of the Labour leader as well, for one thing. But yeah, he's got an awful lot of work to do in the south of England. I think they'll do okay in the north of England, in their heartland, but they've got to come and win in places like Swindon, places like the south coast, Portsmouth, towns like that. They've got to do much better.
So do you think that this is something that the Tories have won, or would you put it more that the Labour Party have lost?
I think the Labour Party has lost it. I don't think they've worked hard enough here. I think they probably know that. From what I've been told by Labour leaders here, Labour councillors here, they say we've got to start working harder. We've got to reconnect. I think they're getting the message. They have got to work much harder now.
So looking at the general picture, you know, Swindon is, as I said, a barometer of the rest of the country. And of course it is a town that has its ups and downs with employment and so on and so forth. I mean, how do you see this all playing out? I mean, can you see a radical change from the Labour Party to pull it out the back?
I don't get that impression tonight. From what I'm seeing, from what I'm hearing, they sound a bit down, a bit disillusioned. They don't sound full of energy, and they need to be at this time of the election cycle.
Well, we've just got another one coming in, so we'll just watch this one a second.
UK Independent Party candidate 421. Mary Elizabeth Friend, the Conservative Party candidate 1124. Anthony Terence Garrett, the UK Independent Party candidate 405. John Keepin, the Labour Party candidate 491. Gemma Jacqueline McCracken, the Conservative Party candidate 1164. Jason John Mills, the Labour Party candidate 502. And Margaret Nixley, Liberal Democrat candidate 172. And there were 14 ballot papers rejected. And I hereby declare that Mary Elizabeth Friend and Gemma Jacqueline McCracken are duly elected as members for the Assembly.
So that was a fairly predicted result there for St Andrews. The Conservatives were expected to hold on to it, they did. But basically just one seat now to call that central, which they've just called into a huddle now. That means the Tories have absolutely held on to the council, and they've got a majority now. They've increased their majority from 1 to 2 seats. The UKIP will be very, very pleased. They've got a huge vote, but they haven't got a seat on the council. Labour will be bitterly disappointed.
that they didn't manage to make inroads into the Conservative vote. In fact, they actually lost the vote as well. And you can see the Tories over there very jubilant because, of course, they now know that they have overall power in the council.
Oh,
if you can.
For the central ward, I declare the returning officer at this election to hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Junan Ali, the Labour Party candidate, 1386. Timothy Michael French, the Conservative Party candidate, 495. Nicholas Gary Cairn, the Independent candidate, 127. Imtiaz Kane, Liberal Democrat Social Scheme candidate, 1189. Brian David Stone, UK Independent Party candidate, 454. With 35 ballot papers rejected, and I do hereby declare that Junan Ali is duly elected as Councillor for Central.
Well, that's it. That's the last one to come in. They were expecting a little bit of an upset potentially there with the Liberal Democrats. They did score incredibly well, their best one of the night apart from Escott, which they held, but very close to the Labour group there in Central. Liberals 1189, Labour 1386, only 200 difference there. Conservatives very, very low, but it was of course a Labour stronghold. But the big news of the night here in Swindon is that the Conservatives have not only held on to the control of the council, they've actually increased it by 1 seat as well. A remarkable result. We're going to be back in about 5-10 minutes with more analysis. What happens to Labour? Why did it go so wrong? What did the Conservatives do that they did so well? The UK Independence Party, what happened to them? Didn't they do incredibly well? But they'll be disappointed they didn't get a seat, but they've certainly put themselves on the political map. Liberal Democrats, not a disaster for them. Apart from 2 seats, they did incredibly well, but the rest not quite so good. And the Green Party actually beat Liberals in one case as well. We'll be back in 10 minutes with more analysis, and we'll see you then. Hello, welcome back to SwindonWeb Live. We're here at the Oasis. It has been one heck of a night here down at the Oasis for the Swindon Borough Council elections. So many thoughts about what could have happened tonight. The Labour Party were looking to get back the council, or certainly get to a position where the Conservatives no longer had overall control. It's been a complete shock tonight. The Labour Party didn't win 1 seat back from the Tories. In fact, the reverse. Cobingham and Dorking was actually taken from the Labour Party by the Conservatives. I'm joined by a jubilant David Reynard. You must be absolutely thrilled. I mean, this is probably a better result than you could have ever imagined, really, isn't it?
Well, I did think we could make gains, but the big issue was whether UKIP were going to change the results by getting a large number of votes. We knew they were going to do well, but we didn't know what impact that was going to have.
Let's talk about UKIP first of all, because occasionally they pushed you into third place in some of the seats which you weren't strong in any way, and likewise with your strong seats they pushed Labour into third position. So it did have a big effect, but just not quite enough to change it. Where do you think their votes came from?
Well, it's quite clear a lot of traditional Labour voters have gone to UKIP this time round, which is probably the main reason why Labour's had such a bad night. But also their campaign was very negative. By contrast, we ran a very positive campaign. We weren't critical of any of the other parties, and I think the voters responded to that.
So what about Cobingham and Dorking? I mean, yes, you only needed a 2% swing to get it, but even so, when the tide normally is against you because you've got the incumbent in Westminster, you've been in power here for a while as well, that must be thrilling for you.
It is. We won, of course, the other 2 seats last time round when we had all-out elections, so we always felt that it was winnable. We've been working hard. We've put in a strong campaign there, and it's paid off.
Now, obviously it's not for you to speak to the Liberal Democrats, but their votes, apart from in Central and in Escott, which they held, their vote seems to have virtually collapsed.
Well, they've traditionally been the party of those who wanted to protest. And I think the protest vote has gone to UKIP this time, and that's another reason why they've increased their vote.
So have you, we talked earlier on in the evening about the lessons and things that you will have learned from your doorstep and so on when you've been out there. What will you take away from tonight?
I think the key message is that politics is extremely local. I think we've known that, but particularly that's been shown in this election. Old Town, for example, the result did hinge on a particular local issue. Cobingham and Dorking, there could have been some local issues, but our candidate and their council colleagues worked well to neutralise that. So it's different issues in different wards, and we've got to be mindful of that and be much more focused rather than assuming that everybody across the borough will be voting on the same issue.
Now, looking at some of the issues and going forward for the next term, of course, we know we've got elections again in 2 years' time for the second third of the councillors.
Well, no, it's next year. To coincide with the general election.
Right. Okay. So, big fun. So obviously you're going to be working hard to make sure that the majority of two you keep.
Well, it's majority of three, of course, because although we've only gained one, another party has lost one. So that gives us a 300% improvement in our majority, which obviously we're delighted with. But Conservatives work hard all year round, so we're just going to keep doing what we always do.
Now, one of the things that was very interesting in the campaign and talking to in the past is things like the main plans for Swindon, the regeneration of central Swindon, we always had cross-party support. So I suppose the bigger projects really aren't going to change because you had cross-party support anyway.
Yeah, it's about the pace of the delivery. We really want to push on now. We're getting some momentum. The Regent Circus development is going to be completed by October, fully occupied. That's going to be a huge boost to the town centre. And already we're getting other organisations that want to come in and invest in the town centre. So we can't just rest on our laurels. We've got to keep that moving.
Again, congratulations to all of your team, and well done.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks.
So there we have it. We've got. Are we still filming? Are we still going? We are. I wasn't sure if we're still live or not. Anyway, we'd love your reaction as well. Tweet us at SwindonWeb TV. Also, of course, you can look at all the videos and see how the evening went on SwindonWeb.com, and you can see there the features. And we're joined. Look at that! As if by magic, he's come here to join us. This is, of course, Justin Tomlinson, MP North Swindon. Bodes very well for next year, doesn't it? Especially up in your area, North Swindon, which is your area. Yeah. Blunton and Highworth, a great result for you there. You must be again over the moon.
Well, we were anxious when we came. Look, we had a majority of 1, that's prime margins. We were trying to overturn a majority of 20 in Cobingham. A massive swing from Labour to us to see us win with a big, huge majority. In Stratton, defending just a majority of 92, we thought that might go, ended up winning by over 300. Blunton and Highwood, doubling our majority, over 800 now. St Andrews and Priory, which make up all the new building in the northern sector, both record results for us. All of them with big swings from the Labour Party. And this is 12 months away from a general election. Traditionally, opposition parties have these massive majorities in the council elections, and then government hopes to then win it back. This is an utter disaster for the Labour Party tonight.
So for you, going towards the general election next year, of course, we spoke to Mark Dempsey earlier on, he's going to be going head-to-head with you in North Swindon.
Yep.
And obviously a lot of work to be done, but I'm guessing this is quite a leg up for you.
I mean, look, huge amounts of work to go. A week is a long time in politics, let alone a whole 12 months. Yeah. Lots and lots of things to go. UKIP is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. All three mainstream parties need to look at how they can engage and how they can focus their message so that they can seal the deal with the electorate. This is, a sizable protest vote tonight, and we'll see, I think, the biggest protest vote in European elections on Sunday.
Well, let's talk about UKIP, because actually they pushed the Conservatives into third place in quite a few seats. That must be a little bit of a worry.
Well, they pushed Labour back ahead. When we arrived tonight, the Labour Party were banking on the fact that UKIP would take more votes from us than from them to then take the council. As it turns out, they've taken more votes from the Labour Party than they have from the Conservative Party. Now, my theory on this is, when UKIP first started, they were very much about Europe. Now, I'm a Eurosceptic, and I'm proud of that, and that works with Conservative voters. Now their main theme is immigration. That tends to work more in the Labour heartlands, in traditional working class communities who are responding to UKIP's message on this. This is a major problem for the Labour Party, and it's sort of turning the tables now. UKIP is a big threat to Labour.
And moving to the Liberal Democrats, apart from 2 seats where they did well, they held Escott, but again, their votes seem to collapse.
Well, to be fair to the Liberal Democrats, but Swindon's not a great test for them because they are only really active in a couple of seats, and they did particularly well to hold the Escott seat. Credit to them because I know they worked that very hard, and they did face a tough challenge from the Labour Party. But again, the Labour Party to win the general election are banking on Conservative voters going to UKIP, but they're losing more. Liberal Democrat voters switching to the Labour Party, but where the Liberals are actually, that isn't happening.
Well, Justin, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. It's obviously a great night for the Conservatives, but a lot of work before next year.
Huge amount.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. So it's been quite a night here at the Oasis. A lot of things happening, some shock results there for the group, and especially for the Labour group. And I'm now joined by Jim Grant. A tough night for you.
Yes, it's slightly disappointing, but I think we had some good results, particularly in the Old Town ward, and I think we to a certain extent aside of the UKIP phenomenon, although I think in the marginal seats, Labour voters voting UKIP did cost us the chance to go forward.
But, they were expected to take votes from the Conservatives, but they seem to have taken for you. I mean, you were taken, like the Conservatives, quite often you were in third place after UKIP in quite a few of the wards. And you actually haven't even improved, in your position. You should be looking to improve your position rather than decline.
No, I mean, I think it is a disappointing night, but I think, as I say, we have had some very good results in the fact that we've displaced the Tory candidate as cabinet member in Old Town. We had some good results in West Swindon. We didn't win, but we increased our vote. And I think that stands in good stead for the 2015 general election.
But you need to do an awful lot more, don't you? Because at the end of the day, you can't be in a position a year away from a general election losing council seats.
Well, as I say, it has been slightly disappointing tonight, but I'm sure that we need to go away, regroup, look at these results and look at our policies locally and see how we can improve our vote next time.
So what are the things that you're going to be doing? You obviously were on the doorstep, you were talking about things resonating with the general public. Obviously you didn't manage to get your message across. Does it mean you need a different message, a different leader, or do you just need a different course, or just to talk about it differently?
I think our message, our policies were the right ones on green waste and potholes, and the leisure services. I think we need to ensure that we get that message across more effectively in the future.
Obviously you'll be working very hard towards the general election next year. Mark Dempsey, of course, going for the seat up there in North Swindon. North Swindon particularly strong for the Conservatives tonight. They increased their majorities quite significantly. That's not what we would have expected tonight, is it?
No, I think that our vote is more or less stayed the same on the 2012 results. Now there has been increased turnout tonight, and I think that's slightly affected the actual overall result, particularly in the north. But we are confident that we can turn this around in the next 12 months.
And how are you going to react now to UKIP? They now are a force not just against the Conservatives, but clearly against Labour as well. Is that going to create a slightly different tack for you?
Well, we need to look at why the UKIP phenomenon is happening. I suspect it's not anything to do with the policies that UKIP have got, but more disaffection with mainstream political parties, including Labour. And I think that we need to look at how we start to reconnect with our core vote that UKIP appear to be tapping into.
Well, thanks very much indeed, Jim, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Don't walk off with our microphone now.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
That's Jim Grant, leader of the Labour group, and of course a very disappointing night for them. Not only did they fail to get those extra seats they were looking for, they actually lost Dalton and Cottingham, which was, I think, a shock to everybody. A very interesting phenomenon for the Lib Dems tonight. They did very well in Central. They held Escott, but in other areas they were pushed to 4th, 5th, even 6th place. What do you really reckon about this, Sam? Because it's been quite an interesting night for the Lib Dems, isn't it?
It has. I mean, where we targeted, we did relatively well. I mean, obviously Central was a key seat for us, and we definitely wanted to make a gain. And we almost made it, just not quite enough. So that was very close. We held Ascot, which was our big base in Swindon. So
you know, we held, so that, you know, we got the cake, but not the icing, you know, so we just definitely want to make a break. And it was a surprise, I must admit. We expected Labour to do a lot better than they did. In fact, they actually went backwards. They actually lost the seat. So that goes very badly for the general election.
Why do you think that happened?
Well, I could blame Miliband's visit to Swindon, that may be one excuse. I don't know. It's just they didn't get the message across. And I think, strangely enough, the UKIP vote probably took away votes from Labour and the Conservatives.
So they're taking some votes away from you, because of course you were seen traditionally as a protest vote, and maybe people switch their protest votes to UKIP.
Oh, very much so. UKIP now is the party or the voice of protest. No, because nobody really knows what the policies are, and the only the policy we all know they don't like Europe, want to get out of it. Don't see anything else? No, we don't. But they are a way of protesting, and that's where they go today. And it was amazing gains, you know, in terms of actually the percentage of votes. Actually, it's in the second place, with, you know, votes over 800. Very surprising.
And how are you going to react to this evening's results in terms of future? We've got a general election just a year away. You know, has it affected the way that you're thinking?
I think that the local way is the best at it. Community politics and really concentrate on the local issues and trying to magnify those, make people realise they're the important issues on a local level. And obviously just hope we can actually turn around a national situation, because the coalition has damaged the advantage in many respects. It's actually trying to make people realise the benefits of coalition and trying to sell those benefits. And I'm afraid we have to leave that to the party leaders really to push that, and let's hope they do a good job.
Well, Sam, thanks very much for talking to us. Congratulations in Central and Ascot, and we'll see what a year does to politics and the Liberals in Swindon.
Yes,
thanks very much indeed. Again, please do let us know your feedback at SwindonWeb TV. We'd love to hear from you. It's now great to chat to someone who I chat to when I'm on Swindon 105.5 radio. One of my fellow broadcasters there in the afternoon. You've been broadcasting for Swindon 105.5 all evening this evening. It's been a remarkable night, and something I don't think anyone would have predicted, really.
The amount of campaigning that's gone on has been astonishing. I mean, the wards that I earn is press and video, and the amount of leaflets we had kept to our door was huge. The game was won for the Tories, but then again, the amount of UKIP votes was astonishing as well. In almost every ward, there was 500, 600, 800 in some wards.
Well, indeed, in fact, they pushed the next main party often into third place.
Yeah.
But they didn't actually ever quite, they were hoping to get a seat, weren't they?
They didn't get a seat. Yeah. So you've got this massive protest vote, this huge sort of heat and light that didn't really generate a huge amount. What will be interesting now is what happens in the next 12 months for UKIP. Do they carry on, or is there going to be some faltering bit that's going to just push them over the edge?
Well, it's that whole thing that everyone was expecting to take predominantly from the Tories, but evidently without question they took from the Labour Party.
Yeah.
They also took from the Liberal Party, because everyone's thinking the Lib Dems being the protest vote, now they went to UKIP.
Yeah.
Do you think the parties are going to have to look at UKIP in a different way to the way they were?
The problem I think people have had with them is that they've been seen as a bit of a joke. And if you're going to vote for them, they have to treat it with a certain amount of, dare I say, almost respect. If people are going to vote for them, you have to lay them down, you know, very carefully and say what your policy is going to be, what exactly you're going to be asking us to do as your elected representative. If they'd won today, that would have been even more interesting, because if they'd got into council, how would that council have acted? Would they have acted in a local manner or in a national policy manner with Farage? So it's going to be interesting over the next 12 months, what is the National Party going to do, and locally, are they going to campaign differently, or are they going to keep doing what they've done, or is it just going to be a protest vote and a flash in the pan? We'll see that before next year.
And the other thing is, of course, we're now looking at the year ahead. We know when the general election is going to be. Justin Tomlinson in North Swindon was looking maybe a little bit more vulnerable before the season.
Greens were huge, weren't they, tonight?
Well, he seems to have got even stronger. I mean, you look at Blomston and Highworth, the heartland, Hayden Wick, which they could have lost. Yet they seem to increase their majorities. I mean, it's an extraordinary position that Labour haven't made inroads in that. And for Mark Dempsey to be able to out Justin next year, he's got to do some serious work, isn't he?
I mean, a lot of those North Swindon seats as well. North Swindon is a relatively new area of Swindon as well, new town, a lot of families, a lot of people coming in very recently. They see a friendly face and things that they know. Emma Farage is a fantastic example of that. She's campaigned on lots of local nitty-gritty issues, like there's been a smell in North Swindon. There's been affected a lot of people, the Chapel Farm problem with the estate there, and the traffic issue as well. It's small, tiny bits in local politics, and that's been explained by how well the Conservatives have done tonight, and they've held up and they've even gained.
I mean, that is actually a remarkable thing, because one of my frustrations is often that politics doesn't become local, it's too much of a national picture. Yet Swindon just talking to everybody from all parties, it does seem to be
have been won, on many cases, on local issues. Yeah, and as boring and as mundane as they may be, there's a great phrase which is, local politics is a dung heap of politics that does grow marvellous roses. It's the boring nitty-gritty stuff, who empties your bins, as the streets say, will your kids be alright as they walk to school? If you can get that and tackle that, and you can put a friendly face in front of people when you knock on the door, that's who they're going to vote for. And they're going to vote more with that than they do with a politician maybe in Westminster or a name that comes in the paper. But Swindon is always seen as a bit of a barometer for the rest of the country, seen as a middle-of-the-road could swing either way, as indeed it has done in the past. It shows that the Labour Party has got to do some serious work if they have a chance of winning Swindon seats. And they need to win a Swindon seat to be able to win the general election. As an opposition, you've got to be really gutsy, and if you're going to nail your colours to the mast, you've really got to go for it. That's what happens on live TV. They did do that with the latest video edition, where Lizzie was suggested it might be sold. So they did do that, and they gained an awful lot of traction from that. But they didn't carry it on. They should have asked the Tories, for example, they should have kept on the offensive and should have asked them, are you going to privatise the schemes and Stanton Park, and you're going to sell off the management of other various aspects? But they didn't do that. They sort of stopped. So they could have carried on with that. So it shows that if you've got seats and you're really going to grab hold of an issue, so all the way to the end. If they'd shown that confidence earlier on, maybe they could have gained more. But ultimately, is it a national view that people are sort of tired of the Tory and the Labour fight back and forth? It could be that, or it could just be people wanting to protest the UK tonight. It's really causing a lot of people to think about where they go from here. I think from all parties. Nobody was really expecting it. But of course, I think the big picture, obviously, Tories here, we'll have to wait and see what the rest of the country will do. Labour are hoping to make some big gains in London, and certainly in the south, where they need to make gains to win the general election. And what people shouldn't forget as well in the last day, or today and yesterday, the retail figures are up. So people are spending even more today, according to the figures that they were back just before the peak in 2007, 2008. So people feel more confident, even if the figures don't really bear out, if they feel more confident, they feel they've got money, they feel there's something in the air, people are going to vote in favour of whatever sort of caused that. So the Tories are probably benefiting in the last 6 months that things have gradually turned around and they've actually started to accelerate a bit. That's probably been... So what can Labour do? Their big thing was going to be the cost of living, that yes, it might be good in the the market's doing well, everything's doing great, but we're not feeling this in our pockets. Now that doesn't seem to be the case, because as you said, people are out spending. What on earth are they going to do? How are they going to grab people's attention to say, hey, hang on a second, vote for us? I would love to have a crystal ball right now, because able to look at the manifesto for next year, but we don't have that. So maybe it'll be policies being tweaked, maybe it'll be brand new stuff. There was some traction that Ed Miliband got in the last few weeks about a possible suggestion of renationalising the railway. That's a big issue at the moment. Other things like that really... Is that a vote winner? I don't know. I think it's more of a Tory heartland thing in the south east, because it's sort of commuter land. But it's one of those things where you can suggest something that's brand new, almost like blue sky thinking, which is ironic to the Tories, but a Labour idea. It's a blue sky idea. Yeah. And then you can change it, and you can take it to what you want to relate to, rather than being led constantly by another party. That's well, important. Certainly, if they have an inkling of a chance of winning the election next year, they're going to have to pull some serious new things out the bag, aren't they? And ultimately, it's almost everything. You've got to act, and you've got to look confident. If they maybe had more of a swagger in the last few months, maybe they could have done that. But Labour and the Tories have campaigned in their own streets in Swindon more than I think they've campaigned in recent history. I mean, forgetting about the major gap earlier on in the week, but I think probably people just had a laugh at that it wouldn't have affected votes necessarily. You're the Labour Party, aren't you? Absolutely. But looking at the Labour Party, you know, they now, in Swindon, if this is the way things have gone, you know, people like Ed Miliband must be seriously worried, thinking, if we can't make impact there, what are we going to do? The Labour group in Swindon and the Tory group is very similar to the rest of the country. You've got councillors who've done the job for about 20, 30 years in some cases, who are very good, some who are sort of okay. Then you've got new candidates that have come in the last few years, but you've got to get the mix right. And if you've got new candidates, maybe a new leader of a party, a younger leader, that person's got to be really charismatic, and they've got to grab people's attention, and they've got to be good on the doorstep. If they're not like that, then you're really going to struggle. And coming back to this thing of local versus national, if you had to put a percentage in terms of what you think was national versus local in this election tonight, what would you say? In Swindon, I'd probably say national politics is probably about 70%, and then local
again, ward by ward it's different, but probably like 30% for local stuff and for local stuff.
Well, we'll be back here in a year.
You're all over again. I promise I'll dress up for you next time. Please do. And I hope you will as well.
I will try. John, thanks very much indeed.
No problem.
See you on Tuesday, Swindon 105.5 afternoon, sir. Yeah. Thank you very much. Cheers, John. Thanks a lot. Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening. It's been an extraordinary evening of politics. A lot of scratching of heads is going to take place. Whether the Conservatives have peaked too early is another matter. Of course, we'll be back here again next year. As you heard from Justin, there's going to be another third of the council is going to be re-elected next year. So we'll have to wait and see what happens then. Will the Tories hold on? But as I mentioned earlier on, of course, it's not a game of two. Yes, they have got a majority seat, but of course the Labour have lost one of theirs. They've now got a 3-seat majority, which is quite extraordinary. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Thank you everyone here at the Oasis Centre making us feel so welcome. Tom's behind the camera, done a fantastic job, despite the camera falling off its tripod earlier on in the evening. But we won't mention that to anybody at all. And also handling everything over here is Tom. Come in here, Tom, in a second. He's been handling the computer down here, making sure it all works.
I have indeed.
He's done an amazing job. Been tweeting as well. I have no idea what he's been tweeting at all. But I'm sure it's been great. A fantastic night, great success for SwindonWeb TV because this has been our first live election broadcast. Hope you've enjoyed the coverage and hope we'll see you again next year. And of course, stay online and stay with all of the latest news stories here at SwindonWeb. Or at least for us to stay here at the Oasis Centre, myself, Alistair Green, and all of us at SwindonWeb. Have a great night and we'll see you soon.